Their fate was to be negotiated after a ceasefire was agreed with the Syrian army and Hezbollah, who had been fighting in the western Kalamoun region. Earlier, I spoke to our correspondent Adam Pletz in Beirut about how the deaths are likely to impact the ceasefire.
These are the 9 remaining Lebanese soldiers who are thought to have been being held by Islamic State group. They were part of 30 soldiers originally taken back in 2014 when Islamic State group and Al-Nusra briefly overran the town of Arsal. And of those 16 were released in prisoner exchanges with Al-Nusra. A further 4 were executed. 1 died of his injuries during the fighting when they were captured. And then these 9 remaining soldiers, the Lebanese authorities' general security services here are saying that they're now confident that they found 6 of their bodies, probably a further 2. They haven't carried out DNA tests yet, but they do seem confident that these are the remains of those servicemen. That does still leave 1 soldier unaccounted for, but up until now, these soldiers have normally been described as being of unknown fate, and certainly it was hoped that they were alive, that there could have been some sort of exchange or release. Certainly that was the hope of their families, who have frequently demonstrated against the Lebanese government over the years since their relatives were taken, saying that the government wasn't doing enough to try and release them from capture. So this at least will give those families an opportunity now to start a process of mourning.
And how are the deaths likely to impact the military campaign in the region? Is it likely that fighting will resume imminently?
Well, that's not likely to be the case, actually, because it now seems that an agreement has been reached to transport those Islamic State group fighters to Deir ez-Zor in the east of Syria, where Islamic State group still holds territory. Now, this is something that had been hinted at earlier in the week by Hezbollah, who said that Islamic State group had approached them on Thursday requesting a withdrawal and saying that they'd surrender. But it looked like there could have been a stumbling block to this, because Hassan Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah, then went on to say that because these fighters would have to transit through Syrian government-held territory, it would, of course, need the assistance of the Syrian government, and that the Lebanese government would have to formally request this assistance. That's something that many members of the Lebanese government refused to do. Since then, that stumbling block seems to be removed, because certainly Syrian state media and local press are reporting that there are a number of buses and Syrian Red Crescent vehicles already gathered in a town just over the border on the Syrian side, waiting to evacuate some 400 Islamic State group fighters and their families, or I shouldn't say evacuate, rather to transport them to these areas in eastern Syria, which they still control. So rather than a continuation of fighting, we'll see, as we saw with Al-Nusra, an agreement to remove these fighters to other areas which they still control.